When my boss and I were alone on a trip, it started with something so ordinary that I never imagined it would turn my world upside down. My name is Rachel Evans, and this is the story of how one business trip changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and myself. I have been working at Silverline Marketing for almost 5 years. My boss, Daniel Carter, was the kind of man everyone admired. Confident, charming, the kind of person who could walk into a room and instantly command attention. But for me, he was just my boss, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. It all began one chilly Thursday morning when Daniel called me into his office. He had that serious, focused look on his face, the one that always made people nervous. "Rachel," he said, "I need you to come with me to Chicago next week. The client presentation is too important to risk any mistakes, and I trust you more than anyone else." My heart fluttered, but I brushed it off. This was work, nothing more. Still, there was something about the way his eyes held mine a second too long that made me question that. The trip started uneventfully. We flew out early on a Monday, shared polite small talk on the plane, and checked into a quiet downtown hotel. Of course, the company had accidentally booked only one suite with 2 bedrooms. I laughed about it. Daniel didn't. He just said, "Well, I guess we'll have to make it work." That first night, after hours of prepping slides and rehearsing for the big presentation, we ordered room service. The mood was relaxed, the city lights glowing through the tall windows. He poured wine, just one glass each, and for the first time in all those years, we weren't boss and employee. We were just two people, exhausted, sharing a quiet moment in a strange city. As the night went on, the conversation drifted away from work. He told me about his college days, his failed marriage, how he'd buried himself in work to fill the emptiness. I told him about my long-term boyfriend, Ethan, who lately felt more like a roommate than a partner. We laughed, we shared, and for the first time, I saw Daniel not as my boss, but as a man, flawed, lonely, and disarmingly kind. At one point, I caught him staring at me, the air thick with something I couldn't name. My heart pounded. He smiled softly and said, "You deserve someone who really sees you, Rachel." I didn't respond. I couldn't. The tension between us was undeniable, but I forced myself to stand up and say, "We should get some rest." Big day tomorrow. That night, I lay awake in my hotel room, the city buzzing outside. I thought about Ethan, about how distant we'd grown, how I couldn't remember the last time we'd laughed like I did tonight. I tried to convince myself that nothing was happening. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Something had shifted. The next day, the presentation went perfectly. Daniel and I worked seamlessly, our chemistry undeniable. Our clients were impressed, and by noon, the deal was sealed. To celebrate, Daniel insisted we go out for dinner. "You earned it," he said with that familiar grin. Dinner turned into drinks, drinks turned into laughter, and laughter turned into silence, the kind of silence where words don't matter anymore. As we walked back to the hotel through the crisp night air, his hand brushed against mine. Neither of us pulled away. When we reached the elevator, the tension was electric. He pressed the button for our floor, and in that small, enclosed space, every breath felt heavier. When the doors opened, I turned to say goodnight, but before I could, he stepped closer. "Rachel," he whispered, "if this is wrong, tell me to stop." But I didn't. I couldn't. The next moments blurred together, a mix of fear, longing, and something dangerously intoxicating. His lips brushed mine, hesitant at first, then deeper, as if years of restraint finally broke loose. For the first time in a long time, I felt wanted, alive. We spent the night together, not as boss and employee, not as people caught in the rules of right and wrong, but as two lonely souls who found comfort in each other's arms. And yet, when morning came, reality hit like a storm. I woke before him, staring at the city skyline, my heart heavy. I had crossed the line I could never uncross. The flight home was quiet. We didn't speak about what happened, but the silence said everything. Back at the office, things were complicated. Daniel treated me the same professionally, but there was an unspoken understanding between us. A glance across the room, a brush of hands during meetings, little moments that reminded us of that night. Meanwhile, Ethan noticed the change. He asked if something was wrong, and I lied. Just work stress, I said, forcing a smile. But every time Daniel's name popped up on my phone, guilt tore through me. I tried to end things emotionally, to put distance between us, but Daniel made it impossible. He'd find reasons to call me into his office, to compliment my work, to share those soft, knowing smiles. Then one evening, weeks later, he called me in after hours. "We need to talk," he said. His tone was serious. "Rachel, I can't keep pretending nothing happened. I know it's complicated, but what we have, it means something to me." I wanted to believe him. A part of me did, but another part, the rational one, knew this could only end in heartbreak. "Daniel," I whispered, "we can't do this. You have your career. I have a life I've built. I can't destroy it over one night." He reached for my hand, his eyes filled with something I'd never seen before. Vulnerability. "You're not just one night to me," he said. "But if this is goodbye, I'll respect that." I left his office with tears in my eyes, my heart split in two. Ethan and I eventually broke up, not because I told him the truth, but because I couldn't keep pretending. As for Daniel, we never spoke about that night again. He transferred to another branch months later, leaving only memories behind, bittersweet, haunting, unforgettable. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd made a different choice that night. Maybe life would have been simpler. But then again, maybe it's those messy, complicated moments that remind us we're human, that even in the middle of mistakes, we can find pieces of truth about who we are and what we really want. That trip changed me. Not because I fell for my boss, but because I learned how fragile love can be, and how crossing one line can teach you more about yourself than a lifetime of playing it safe. If you've ever faced a moment where your heart battled your conscience, then you already know temptation doesn't always look like danger. Sometimes it looks like someone smiling across a dinner table, saying your name just a little too softly. This was my story, my truth. And maybe, somewhere out there, someone understands what it feels like when the line between right and wrong blurs under the dim lights of a hotel room far from home.